Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debate, the Championship podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by my regular guest, Ollie Mann from the Sheffield United way. Great to have you on as always, Ollie. But we've got a special guest, the first of two this evening. We're joined by Neill of Bobbins, the Twitter account on Reading. Great to have you on Neill. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Yeah, and a lot to talk. Well, I suppose there's almost three things to talk about when it comes to Reading. Since three main things since we last spoke to you, and I think we'll start with the 6 point deduction on Reading.
Yep.
How do you feel about how the club has been treated? Is this a bad reflection on the authorities, or is it a bad reflection on how Reading have been run, or is it a bit of both?
I would say it is absolutely a fair cop. You can't
Right.
really put two ways about it. It's one of those things that when you're in it and you're during it, you're thinking we're spending money, we're aiming high, we're doing things that you want clubs to do, which is buy players and assemble a squad. It's only when you come out the back of it and you think, we really didn't do this the right way, did we? We're spending far too much money on wages. The club is unsustainable. We didn't get the success that we wanted. And then you look back at it and you feel a little bit betrayed, really, as you were sold a dud. Everyone wants their club to be run properly. Everyone wants
Sure.
their club to be successful. We just shot for the moon and hit Swindon, basically. So when it all came down, we had 6 points last season. It could have been that we would have had the 12 points in one go, but for some reason we wrangled our way out of that and got them spread over 2 seasons, which ultimately has so far helped. It still may send us down, but that's not necessarily the fault entirely of the 6 points. So yeah, I think most fans are kind of sanguine about it because it's pretty indefensible what we've done. There's not many feet we could stand on and sort of say, look, it's a little bit unfair. The AFL have handled it very badly, I must say. But then again, there's not many other references in time that you can say, oh, they've done it differently for X, they've done it differently for Y. They haven't. So as an administration, we can blame the EFL to a point. We've had this hanging over us for a good 6 weeks or so, and that's definitely affected things between the fans and the players. You could tell that they just wanted it over with just as much as we did.
Sure.
For it to be, put on us this late in the season seems a little bit unfair, if truth be told.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that. I'm just wondering, do you feel like the sanctions are going to be lifted from
Yeah.
next season, whether that's in League One or in the Championship? Is
Right.
there a feeling among Reading fans that now there is an opportunity for the club to just turn a page, whether that's in this division or the one below, and just start a new chapter for the club? Because it's felt like, and as a Birmingham fan, I can sort of relate to this, there's been a long period where the club's been fighting just to keep its head above water. But at the end of it, there's been no real hope of something more sustainable, something bigger, something better. And you've kind of just been going along because the club hasn't been run particularly well. But now you've appointed a head of recruitment. You've got
Yep.
Mark Bowen as a technical director. You've
Yep.
got an opportunity to appoint a great manager in the summer. Is there a little bit more hope around the corner?
Yeah, I mean, we had that at the start of this season, really, where speaking to Mark Bowen, he's outlined what they're trying to do. As you say, we've got recruiting set up now. We've got a guy from Spurs who did a lot of work there. We've taken Dublin from Sheffield United as well, who did great things with them. We've got the building blocks now to start again, and in some ways it's the best way to do it, is to go from scratch. We'll have, I think, another 8 or 10 pros leave in the summer. we've got a hat full of loan players that are already with us. They'll go back to their parent clubs, so we won't have that much to have as dead wood. A lot of the big earners will have gone. So yeah, we've got those things in place. It's just that we'd rather be in the Championship to start again, where you're a more attractive proposition than you would be in League One, where the level of players that we've been looking at now, we would have to temper that and look at that level lower, which we may not have been
Same
doing.
with managers as well.
Yes, absolutely. It goes with the territory, doesn't it? The higher you finish, the more attractive you are to any prospective employee, no matter what level they're at. And there's no one saying that we're going to be anything more than mid-table next year, regardless of division, probably.
I think that's realistic.
So yeah, it's fair to say that it'll be a turning of a new leaf in every regard. It's just we hope that we can hit the ground running and know that we're in the Championship, and whatever plans they've laid out already, without pushing the execute button, we're ready for.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to bring in Ant Northgraves, who's our regular guest. How are you, Ant?
I'm all right, Gabe. Finished work a little late, so I'm here.
Yeah, good to see you. We're just talking about Reading at the moment. I wonder how you see them their sort of season so far as a whole, fan, because obviously it's been quite a difficult, a period of drama for them, I suppose, because Paul Ince has left as manager and they've had a 6-point deduction, obviously in the relegation zone now. But I think they got a 2-1 win at your place in one of Liam Rossini's, was it his second game in charge, where it was a little bit of a smash and grab. So what have you made of their season from outside looking in?
You feel for them, don't you? I mean, however many teams now you see near enough every season that are suffering because of bad owners. You've got okie dokie, and then you've got so many teams now that are getting points deductions every season. It's the fans that suffer, yet it's not the fans that have done it. And Reading are another team that again have had another points deduction, and they survived last time. You don't know whether or not they're going to survive this time. I mean, Paul Ince to me was never really the right fit. I don't think I've never really rated him as a manager. I don't like how he carries himself either. I don't like his interviews, his press conferences. I just think he's got a sense of entitlement from somewhere, which I'm not sure. He's not really done that much as a manager to justify it to me. He always comes across really angry and stubborn, and seems as though he can justify what he's doing on the pitch, but it never really comes to fruition, does it? So it's a tough time, and like you say, you feel for him, and I don't know this season. They've got to hope really that the likes of QPR continue to be as bad as they are, which is the only way they're going to survive, I think, because I'm realistically looking at that third relegation spot now as the only real drop point, because I think Blackpool and Wigan are pretty much already gone, aren't they? So that third spot is going to be a straight shootout between 3 or 4 teams, but obviously QPR and Reading look most likely at the minute, but you've just got to pick up more points than the other, and considering the form QPR are in, that's the only bright light of Reading season so far, isn't it? So
exactly right.
Yeah. No, it's a really interesting point. I think obviously the relegation battle is a big hurdle in terms of the short term for Reading. But coming to you, Ollie, there's a lot of players out of contract in the summer at Reading, I believe. So there is going to be a huge scope to just have a massive rebuild, which I suppose gives them quite a bit of freedom when it comes to thinking who they can appoint in the summer, because stylistically you can go in with a blank sheet of paper as opposed to needing to hire a very specific manager to suit a very specific type of squad.
Yeah, and I think it's that realism that Neill sort of referred to that I think is really important, because I think whatever division that you're going to end up in, like you say, it's having that understanding that with so many players leaving and a new manager coming in, they're probably going to need some time. It's going to need to be a little bit of a rebuild, and there's going to need to be not too much expectation put on that next man, because as soon as he comes in the summer, if the expectation is, for example, in League One, we've got to finish top 2, then he's on a little bit of a hiding to nothing anyway, because he's got to embed a practically new team almost immediately. So it's really difficult, but I think it gives the owners a really good chance to rebuild trust, because obviously they've failed the club with what's happened in the last 2 years, with the points deductions coming in, with the points deductions again this season. And so what they really need to do is outline, what does the future look like for Reading? How does that future translate into results on the pitch? And therefore that starts with appointing a manager who's got a style, who's going to bring something to Reading, and then allowing him the time to build it. And to be honest, the man who gets my vote is Neil's cat, because he looks like a man who's got a plan. He's able to take Reading forwards. He seems to know just the moment to make himself available.
He's everywhere in the box.
I've not been listening to anything anyone's been saying. I've just been obsessed with the cat. Oh, it's adorable. Neill, I mean, how important is this next managerial appointment going to be for Reading? Because I think if you can stay in the Championship this season and Barnsley don't go up, for me, I'll be all over Michael Duff. I think he would be a fantastic option.
Yeah, it is vital. I mean, any manager that we've had in the last 5-6 years has been a car crash of sorts. You know, that they start well and end horrifically. They follow the same pattern of starts well, looks promising, we end up top of the table for a fleeting moment, and then the wheels come off massively and the players disengage. And we've had it time and time again. So yeah, it kind of goes back to that backroom area where we're revamping, where we've never had anything before in place. The next manager has to align with that. And I don't think they're going to take the risk on, don't wish to be cruel, but has been like Ince or someone who's too inexperienced or fashionable. That they've got to do it right. They've got to have all their synergies in line and make sure that everyone's buying into the same cause. So and Duff is certainly one name that pops up. Critchley's another. Everett's another one as well. All these kind of names, they're like not managers that have been around the block too much, but they know enough. And they're modern in their outlook and progressiveness in their tactics and defined style, and that's what we've missed. We've missed a defined style. That the style that we've had under Ince is anti-football. I wrote the other day and I said it was dementor football because it just sucked the joy out of everything. You wonder what they were training and doing because you couldn't see patterns, you couldn't see partnerships, you couldn't see relationships or ownership on the field. It was just horrific to watch. And now we got Noel Hunting, who's as Ollie was saying, a member of our 206 207 team. The fabric of the club is in him. Whether he's got the talent to get us over the line is something else in 5 games.
I could see a short-term impact with Noel Hunt because sometimes
you'd have to.
Yeah, I think sometimes if the previous manager wasn't, hugely universally popular, sometimes there can be an element of relief in some quarters, and that can translate if you've got someone who's really passionate about the club, who gets the club, who's sort of going to bring in 1 or 2 of the young players who can sort of rejuvenate things a little bit. All of a sudden, you've got this fresh ball of energy, which over 5 or 6 games can sometimes just get you enough points to get over the line. I'm not saying Noel Hunt's the best person for the club long term, because I think that's a different conversation, but in terms of keeping Reading up this season, I think he's got a decent chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of us know with our football clubs that when a manager loses the dressing room in inverted commas and the players aren't listening anymore, it doesn't matter what words are said, what tactics are formed, what players go out in the field. They haven't got the confidence in the manager or themselves, so the results are going to naturally fall into place as 0 points in most occasions. And we've all been there, we've all witnessed that. And a different voice, it doesn't matter almost who it is or what standing they've got in the club. A different voice can sometimes just make that little bit of difference that can instill some confidence. And congratulate them in training and do the little things well that snowball into bigger things.
Makes the little things make up the big things.
Yeah, it's just that little thread you need to make something else happen. And with 5 games left, you've got to try. We should have done it with 10 games, 15 games out, maybe. But that's where we are.
How are you? Go on, Ollie.
I was just going to say, so it's interesting for me on this perspective in terms of obviously Ince losing his job, or in terms of thinking about what the future and the vision looks like for Reading, because there's a couple of things that sort of occurred to me, and I know there was a debate about this the other day. I can't remember who I was talking to, but for example, and I think this is a real indictment on the ownership. Do you think that if results had gone your way, QPR had lost, do you think Ince would have been sacked if you were 20th and not 22nd?
That's a very good point. I think for the style of play that we were exhibiting, you could see that wasn't the way forward. Yeah. I mean, I think if you asked any championship side what was one of the worst footballing sides you'd seen this season, Reading would be high up there. I've heard internally that Ince wasn't liked. His practices weren't fostered at all, really. The higher ups wanted to get rid of him sooner, but it all came down to the owner to say yes or no. So I think we waited and waited and waited, and we probably waited too long. I think the writing has been on the wall for a long time, because everything just seemed to be an excuse with Ince. He, as Gab said, he didn't come across as a nice person, to be put bluntly. He didn't come across as if he was a part of the team. It was always they and them and this club, rather than we, me, and I.
I'm sure you got the we, me, and I's whenever you won. It was I won, they lost.
Even then, he was a little bit distanced, to be honest. He would say, the boys put in a good shift and things like that. And there was no warmth that came from it. We won in spite of, rather than because of him, if that makes sense.
And there were lots of games, I think, of where individual quality came to, or there were certain moments where, as opposed, like the whole game back in sort of November time, was it?
That was an absolute steal. We were absolutely robbed Hull of that, and that was our last away win. So that shows us how dreadful we've been, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I've got a question, actually, because
go for it.
With what do you think Tom Ince's future is with you guys? Because obviously he's like your top scorer in that this season, but I get the impression that from your fan base, he's not really liked that much. And I don't think a lot of the team probably like the way he dictates himself on the football field. I think the game at the Select Carlisle Stadium against us, the 1-1 draw, when he did that sort of churlish little kick away of the ball off the pitch, and like he's like a petulant child, isn't he? And I think that maybe sometimes do you think he's only playing as much because literally his dad was the manager, and maybe now things will change, or do you think a new manager will come in and be like, come on, you need to sort your attitude out if you're going to play, kind of thing? Or would you want him to stay?
It's a difficult one, and you're right. In that moment, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, Gab? Where he did boot the ball back from where it came when Tom Holmes narrowly missed him on the touchline. Tom's been like that, but a little more positive throughout the season. He's been a bit, more cajoling. He's been the on-field captain, demanding more of others where they haven't been showing as much as he has.
Just to jump in on that, the Tilehurst End run a Player of the Month poll, and Tom Ince has won it 4 times this season. I think maybe a few outsiders might be a little bit sort of surprised by that, because he's had this reputation previously, and I'm sure you can probably relate to that, Ant, of him maybe being a little bit enigmatic. But actually, this season, Neil, he's kind of been one of, as you say, the figures that are kind of cajoling.
Yeah, he's the one that's shown the energy. When most of them look dead on their feet, he's still closing down at 90 minutes, making sure that we've shithoused our way to a 1-0 win. And he has stood out for that alone. He has scored vital goals. He's our top assist giver with 4. Yeah, he probably has, as Ant mentioned, played for his dad, maybe making up the deficiencies in the management in bailing him out, if you like. If his dad's not there, I mean, Tom's injured at the moment. Whether he'll come back or not is doubtful.
It's a serious one, then, the injury.
I think from what I hear, he was overtrained and suffered an injury to his thigh. Whether he'll come back, yes, Flash. Whether he'll come back before the end of the season, we don't know. Argument would say it's less likely now his dad's gone, and who knows what his future is come the start of the season if he's still with us, because he's one of the few that is contracted. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what his attitude is going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think there's going to be a couple of players that you can start to build around next season, whether it's League One or Championship, or do you feel like it's going to be literally a wholesale change in terms of the summer, and it could be a case of 20 in, 20 out type thing?
I think it will be 20 in, 20 out, to be honest.
Yeah.
We'll still have a few players like Oviajaria on the books.
God, I forgot about him, you know.
Everyone's forgotten about him. Though allegedly, he was pictured in training today, funnily enough.
A couple of years ago, we were talking about him as one of the most exciting players in the Championship, and now it's like...
He is. When he's on, he's something else.
Yeah, I mean, Oviajaria in League One would be quite fun, theoretically.
It would be fun. I kind of relate him to like a San Maximan. You see him on the ball and you think, wow, you do stuff. But when you look at the end product, you go, no, you don't really, though, do you? You don't actually lay on assists. It just looks pretty.
Yeah.
But to his credit, he does track back also. He does kind of move between the lines. And we've been static. We've been awful at actually, movement and basic moving into space.
And Andy Carroll up top simultaneously. You're not going to get much pace or movement if you've got those.
But you've got to play to your strengths, but you got to supply as well when you've got one of the best natural headers of a footballer in the 21st century. Feed him crosses, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, it did confuse me in our game that Reading didn't take a more direct route in the game and continue to try and weave the way through the middle and play it to their feet when you've got two big guys that, their aerial prowess is their strength and you never utilised it. It was awful.
We played Andy Carroll with his back to the goal, and it's like, what is the point in that? It's like, okay, he'll win headers for you, but if you don't win the second ball, you're screwed. So, hopefully we'll have a change of tack at the weekend.
I mean, is there a chance Femi Aziz plays up top with one of them? Because that's kind of how I'd be thinking. I would think get a Carroll or Zhao and get someone like Aziz running off them, and then you've got one.
And that's the problem that we've got, is that Paul Ince never knew how to manage wide areas. He didn't trust wing backs to actually push up the field. He didn't allow natural wingers to really play. He always played 3 at the back, so you had wing backs that did nothing and stayed compact. So you had Andy Carroll heading the ball back to maybe a Zhao, maybe a Mate, but no one else was running. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do with that ball? Nothing. You'll lose it, and it's back in midfield again with the opposition.
Yeah, it's really difficult to try and sort of break down that thought process. But is Lucas Zhao, is the injuries just really taken the toll now? Because obviously, another one who a couple of years ago I would have talked about him as being one of the best strikers in the league. He was outstanding. He scored so many goals. I remember even when he was at Wednesday, he was a really, really exciting youngster coming through. You thought, my word, he's going to be a player. Is it just that the injuries have kind of taken his legs away?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, Lucas has never been an athlete. Let's be fair. When the ball is at his feet, like a Jaria, he's a wizard. He'll send defenders for an absolute hot dog.
I thought when Jose Gomez first came in, though, I definitely saw a difference in terms of work ethic with Lucas Zhao and energy against the ball. So I kind of feel like injuries have played a part in how mobile he is and how
a little, but he's a confident player.
Right.
Like when we surrounded him with, we had John Swift and Michael Elise supplying him, and if he's feeding off that, he comes alive.
It helps, doesn't it?
He's not got the in-game intelligence to say, I'm going to do this by myself if no one's going to do it for me. He hasn't got that in him. He's a receiver of the ball. And when he's surrounded by good players who can feed him the chances, as Ollie says, then you see the real Lucas Shaw and what he can do. But when he's divorced from that, or the ball isn't coming to him, he's not going to seek it. He'll drop deep to try and be a body, but he doesn't know what to do there. He's areas, nothing's going to happen for him. He can't create it himself. I mean, if he did that and he was that good, he wouldn't be with Reading. He'd be with,
well,
some lower Premier side, perhaps.
That's very true, Neil. Just before we let you go, because we really appreciate your time. What do you think Reading stay up? What's your gut instinct?
Gut instinct says yes, we will.
Okay.
Only because, as Ollie says, QPR are worse. Don't know how, but they are. If we didn't have the 6 points deducted, we wouldn't be close to this.
Yeah.
But our form, if you take it over 24 games, is like, I don't know, 3-4 wins in 24. So that's relegation form, whether you like it or not. If we can, we've got 3 home games left out of 5. If we can scrape something against Burnley, which is very, very unlikely, but new manager bounce and all that, maybe
they've been on it as well. They're celebrating.
Yeah, they could be on the beach, but they've also got the points record of ours to go for, so that can't be too far away in their minds as well. I'm sure they'll be reminded of that.
I suppose we might as well bring in Natalie Bromley, who's the Burnley fan.
Oh, do we have to? No.
I've been sat here for 5 minutes going, come on.
Let me in.
Hi, Ollie.
How are you, Natalie?
Hi, Nat.
Hi, Gabs. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah,
good.
well, I suppose we just before we let Neil go, I just wanted to kind of ask you about, what he's saying there, which is, how do Burnley keep that sort of winning mentality, if you like, even though the number 1 job's already ticked off the list?
I think firstly, it's easy. We've got a title that we need to win. Vincent Kompany isn't one that doesn't go for everything. And while there's still things to win, he will drive that mentality in his own mind and he'll drive that into the team. We've seen it all season. So I think there will be no foot off the gas at all until the title's ours now. Sorry, Ollie, but I think it's kind of looking like it's going to be ours. 14 points clear with 7 games left to go.
What about Reading's 106-point record?
Well, that was my next thing, and he will absolutely be going after that as well, because seasons like that don't come around very often when you have an opportunity to write yourselves into the history books, because records are there because they are incredible achievements for any season. And that season, the Reading record that we're going for was incredible, and it'll be some achievement if we make it. I think if we lose a game or draw a couple of games once the title's done and the record's gone, I think you'll probably see us take the foot off the gas a little bit. But until whilst the points record's still on, I don't see us letting up.
Well, Neil, it's down to you to try and stop Burnley getting to that 106-point record. That's almost part of the motivation, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The impetus is there, isn't it? It's we get 3 points or we get a point, and then that helps us enormously in our predicament, and it does the job that Burnley can't get it anymore. As simple as that. They drop any points, they can't beat it. So it's a win-win, but I'm sure it's not at the forefront of people's minds that stopping the record from happening, because it's been out of our hands for for so long anyway. It's Burnley's job to do, not ours to defend. So yeah, we'll see. I'm predicting 4-0, but not in the home column.
Well, thanks so much for your time, Neil. We'll go and let you see to Flash, and thanks for joining us.
Yep. His brother's lurking around as well, so I'm surprised you haven't seen him nip in either. So
I've got one sat right down here, so we might just literally be replacing your cat with mine. So I think it's going to be
oh, well
the
done.
professionalism's unreal on this show.
Absolutely, it's continuity, isn't it?
That's the highlight. Neill, thanks so much for joining us. Absolutely lovely stuff. Everyone go check out Bobbins on Twitter, and see you again soon, mate.
Cheers. Thanks a lot. See you guys.
See you, Neill.
Thanks, Neill.
Coming to you then, Natalie. We were going to have Dan Ainsworth, a Blackburn fan, on, but he couldn't make it, which
he's got him to hide in his poor Dan. He's had enough. He's just like, you know what? This has been the worst weekend of my life, and I quit. So yeah, poor guys, poor lads, taking pelters from everywhere.
Oh, I know. I think a lot of it did get taken a bit out of context, actually, but no, I think. Yeah, just talk to us about how you're feeling as a Burnley fan, because does it almost feel a little bit anticlimactic, the getting over the promotion line, because it's something that you'd been expecting to happen pretty much since January, I suppose.
No.
Okay.
I did wonder, I've been asked this question a few times this weekend actually, and I did wonder whether it might feel a little bit that way, just because there was a feel of inevitability about it. You can't, whilst it's mathematically possible, and Burnley fans were still, when we were like 11 points clear, going, we can still throw this away. Come on, guys. We've lost twice all season. Like this, it's going to take some spectacular mess up to do this. And I did. It's a good question, actually, Gab, because I did wonder whether or not I would feel a bit like, oh, well, that's done. But the last 10 minutes of the Borough game on Friday night, I had my watch on, a watch that monitors your heart rate. Other brands are available, and it was registering 117 beats per minute, which is just not healthy by anybody's standards. And I just, when the final whistle went, I was as excited as I've been for all of the achievements that we've done in the last decade. It just felt really, really nice. And also, as well, I think we've had a tough few years at Burnley. We've been treading water in the Premier League for probably 4 years, just trying to be the fourth worst team in the league, and it means you don't really get to play entertaining football. It's a grind. You get beaten heavily. You might scrape a 1-0 somewhere, and we had to watch Dyche Ball, which was amazing for what it did for us for the club, but wasn't entertaining at all. So this season's I'm going to be really sad to see this season come to an end. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I'm fighting smug zone here.
No, I don't blame you. I mean, coming to you on this, Ant, it's very, some will say, and it's very easy to say this, that Burnley, what they've been able to spend in the summer, it's a massive advantage. And of course, that's true up to a point. But do you know what? I was saying before the season, this might be the year before they go and do something what they've done this season. I thought this would be a year where, your Manuel Bensons, your Anna Siruri's would take a little bit of time to settle into the Championship. They'll take a year to get their bearings. They might finish 8th, might have some defensive errors, not have enough experience in certain areas and that kind of thing. And then the next year they maybe kick on. But Vincent Kompany's come in, he's stamped his mark on this team straight away. He's motivated the players straight away and got incredible results.
Yes, and I think all the credit has to go. It's not easy to change a club's philosophy and ways of playing in a season. Well, it's only less than a season, isn't it? Because it took them 6 months to really just sort of like nail down that win after win after win kind of form that they've got. But you've got to think what they did under Sean Dyche is that kind of direct football, defensive, organised, that 4-4-2. The old standard British formation and style that suited them well for so long, and obviously saw them a lot of success. But then to bring in somebody with such a drastically, I want to say, opposite style of play, where it's playing out from the back, controlling games, high press, high energy, high entertainment. It's to do that in the time frame that he's done, considering he's fairly new to management, I think is really impressive. So I think Kompany's deserved pretty much every accolade and every bit of praise that he's got this season, because, like you said, it's not tough to get relegated from the Premier League and stay up there, as it's been shown this season. Look at Norwich and Watford. Sure. It's easy to come down and spend a lot of money and not spend it wisely. You've got West Brom that are struggling down here now and taking loans out regularly because they've not had their bounce back up. Sheffield United spent a lot of money when they're in the Premier League and beginning half of that season was, before obviously
We
Slav
don't
got
talk
sacked.
about it. We don't talk about it, and
The evidence is there. So the fact that Burnley have avoided all of that and obviously nailed on that Premier League return, and obviously they're champions elect, aren't they? So what will be interesting for me is to see whether how effective that is in the Premier League, and if he can, if because the problem was like similar to Bielsa in a sense, where Leeds went up and they were amazing that first season, and we're looking at talked about Europe halfway through the season kind of thing, weren't they? And then second season kind of unfolded, and they were conceding shed tons of goals. I think they got the record for most goals conceded in February, and that's the shortest month of the year. So you've got your problem with how open it can be, but it'll be a big test for Kompany and how he approaches management in that sense. How can he adapt tactically to games where he's not going to have majority of the ball? We saw him try go toe to toe with Man City, and that was an interesting game. Obviously, I think the scoreline probably flattered Man City a little bit because Burnley did take it to them and they played well. So enjoy the season and look forward to the next one.
I mean, I suppose let's throw that over to you then, Natalie. How does Vincent Kompany adjust to the different challenges of the Premier League? Because he's not going to throw away his principles that have got Burnley there entirely, but at the same time, he can't copy and paste exactly the same thing because it's a different type of challenge.
Yeah, I think probably the prescript to all of that, what we put in place before we actually go on to consider that question in more detail, is the fact that he has what many Premier League clubs and many Premier League managers don't have, and that is freedom. Burnley isn't a club that's built on ego. It isn't a club that fires its manager for no reason. We stayed with Dyche for longer than we should have done because of that loyalty that we had to him. Alan Pace and his board will send Vincent Kompany into the Premier League and say, give it your best shot. If we get relegated, you'll still have a job. We still want you to come back up again. To be honest, I think our chances of losing Vincent Kompany are much more that somebody else will poach him rather than us sacking him. I just don't think we'll ever get to that stage. I think he'll be gone long before then. But he has the freedom to have the time and the patience to do what he needs to do. That said, Premier League football does come with pressure. It comes with financial pressure and it comes with expectation. I don't think you get the expectation from the fans in Burnley. And the last 3 times we've been in the Championship, we've gone straight up again. So we know we can do it. We know we can get out of that league. I think what Kompany has to do to survive next season is to maintain the football that he's playing and the positivity and the proactiveness in a game, but he needs to reduce it to maybe 45% of the overall play. That needs to be balanced with a more physical presence. I don't think we've got a lot of physicality in the squad.
Experience at the back, I think.
Experience at the back. Yeah, I mean, our centre halves, if we keep Taylor Harwood-Bellis, which I don't think we will, but we've got 4 absolutely incredible centre halves, which I'm excited about, and they've got physical presence and can play out from the back. So actually, that's an area I'm not too concerned about.
Really? You don't think that if you went into the Premier League with Harwood-Bellis, Halmar Ekdal, Amin Al-Dakil and Jordan Bayer, you would suffer from you wouldn't suffer from neither of them having that sort of Premier League experience, that bit of know-how. Really?
No. Yeah, they're really confident players. They're very assured. They are physically very what's what I'm looking for? Very sound. You need that experience in your team. I just don't necessarily need to. I don't think that one of those needs to come at centre half. I am concerned about our 2 fullback positions, left and right. Left back, we've got Ian Maatsen. I've got no idea whether he'll go back to Chelsea or stay with us. And then our cover is Charlie Taylor, who's not featured this season, let alone next season. And then at right back, we've got Vitinho and we've got Connor Roberts. So we definitely need to show those places up. Up front, we've got some good strikers, but again, I think we need a more physical, because you need to be in the Premier League. You need to also be able to take the ball down and play against some very strong centre halves in the
Sure.
Premier League. So I think that needs to be done as well. But no, weirdly, the centre halves is not a position I'm worried about. So I think that's what he does.
It's interesting because I, from an outside perspective, outside looking in, I'd probably be a little bit different to you in that I would think right back would be actually an area I'd be pretty. I think my housemate's a Burnley fan, and she says that Connor Roberts is a contender for Player of the Season. So that's my thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my thinking would be, and then Vitinho's very versatile, but not bad. I mean, would you be looking at cover for Connor Roberts? Or?
I'd be looking at bringing in somebody. Connor Roberts is great, and he's in a fantastic season. But he was in the Premier League last year, don't forget, and he struggled. So I expected him to be released in the summer. I didn't expect him to play in the Championship. Now, as it turns out, Vincent Kompany's got absolutely the best out of him, and he has bossed this season. He's probably one of those players who's maybe too good for the Championship, not quite good enough for the Premier League.
It's a little bit early to make that call, though, Natalie.
It is, yeah. I'm only basing on what happened last year. Like Connor Roberts struggled last year in the Premier League. He kept getting dropped for Matt Lawton when he needed Matt Lawton, and he may have learned from that. In this may be a better system for him. He might be, the formation that Vincent Kompany plays and the attacking style and that he plays might suit his game for. So he might be completely different in the Premier League. I just remember last year Connor Roberts having a really tough year in the Premier League. So that's literally all I'm basing it on. If Connor Roberts can step up and can play better in this formation, I am all for him being the starting right back. No problem whatsoever for me.
I'll jump in with the clickbaity question then, Gab. We'll get us those likes. Wow, Wegos, Natalie.
God, please.
Has he burned all his bridges?
With the fans, he has, yeah. Do you know what? It's really funny because I keep seeing the headlines of people saying like, "Oh, what are United going to do at the end of the season? Will they sell him? Will they keep him?" I'm just like, hi, still ours. Like, anybody remember this still ability play? I don't want him back. Really don't want him back. I just don't. I mean, yeah, he burnt his bridges with me anyway. He could not wait to get out of the door when we got relegated, and he was. Some of this is maybe that more direct European confidence that we're a bit shy of in Britain. Always Brits were a bit too reserved, but he was literally like, "No, I'm not playing in the Championship. I want to play in. I want to get a chance of getting in the national side. I want to play in the World Cup. See you later." And then said, "If you get promoted back to the Premier League, then I'll come back." Oh, will you now? Yes, not on my watch, sunshine. So I think football fans, all of you all know the same. Football fans, perhaps unfairly, expect their players to, where they're representing that club, to play with pride for that badge. And he wasn't. He was playing for a paycheck. He had no interest in it whatsoever. So whether it's right or wrong, whether we should be more understanding of a player who's got a short career to think of, I don't know, possibly.
Well, I mean, are those two things mutually exclusive? Because you can say to White, listen, I get that you want to play in the Premier League and give yourself in a chance of playing in the national team. That's fine. But for us, we want people who are committed to this football club. And if you were sort of snubbing your nose at playing in the Championship, we're not prepared to have you in the Premier League. I think that's a perfectly reasonable position. For the club. I would look at Victor Gyökeres. That would be.
I've heard somebody else say that.
Yeah, because I think in the Premier League, you're probably going to need a centre forward who could just do something individualistically at times. I don't necessarily know that I see a striker in this current Burnley squad that I would trust to do that at Premier League level. So Gyökeres would be top of my list.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I don't know I don't know whether we'll just go abroad. Like I say, we might end up with old Vegos back. I don't really know how he fits in Kompany's system, to be honest. Is not an attitude that I think gels very well, and a personality that gels very well with the team we've got now. I do expect we'll bring more players in anyway, so we might not see the same event. I don't know. But yeah, for me, the two full-back positions and strikers are absolute musts. And if we can bring some experience and bring some physicality to those, and as I said at the start of this entire segment, I think then Vincent Kompany can just dial back his style of football and maybe just have like 40-45% of it based on that and the rest of it. And I think that's a good balance. I think that's how we survive.
The other thing I would bring up, Natalie, is maybe pressing number 10, because I can see that you've got lots of quality out wide, which is Manuel Benson, Anna Saruri. You could even throw Scott Twine into the mix. I'm sure Vitinho. But I think that it's interesting that he's played Goodmanson as a number 10 a lot in the second half of the season, and I don't think Goodmanson is quite Premier League standard. So I would maybe look at a really aggressive, physical pressing type that can sort of do the hard yards, so that maybe there's a little bit more leeway for some of those flair players out wide.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that's an obvious position that we've not really needed this year, because you have the ability in the Championship to play with some of your luxury players and just play it out wide and let them have the freedom and run at players. You do not get away with that in the Premier League. They just cut you out straight away. And yeah, so I would agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
What do you think about what Burnley are going to need in the summer, Ant?
You see, because from an outside perspective, they've smashed it, so you can't really improve it, can you? But when we played them, when they beat us 3-1 at the MKM not that long ago, it's because I thought we gave them a good game, but I thought our midfield were stronger, and it was literally just the difference in finishing that led to Burnley. When we were very wasteful, whereas Teller was clinical, and that's the difference between why Burnley are winning the league and we're down in 16th. But with the midfield that we had, I thought that we controlled the game quite well. So I think I agree in the sense that they need a bit more physicality in the middle. They need a bit of a warrior, someone who's not maybe going to not necessarily go against the grain of what company wants to play, but somebody you wouldn't necessarily put in a side that's going to be possession based, playing out from the back. Someone who's maybe will win the ball, give it to somebody stood next to him who's a bit better, kind of thing. They need somebody who can break up play and kind of take command. And that we say that, but these midfielders are an absolute premium at the minute, aren't they? We used to have near enough every team used to have a traditional number 6, and now they're rare, aren't they?
Or you have more physical box to box types more than you have standard ball.
Yeah, like I said, they're either the energetic, dynamic box to box, or they're a number 10. The defensive side of the game is dying, isn't it?
You need the old United midfield general. That's what you need.
Yeah.
Do you think Jack Cook can cut it in the Premier League, or do you think he's going to struggle with the intensity of it?
It's just his age now. He's 33. He's a class player, and he's been incredible this season because he's been able to drop down. But the old guard, so to speak. So obviously we know Ashley Barnes is leaving.
It's funny because my housemate he isn't a fan of Ashley Barnes at all. She called him going like way before. I was like, surely
it's time.
No, it was time. Okay, it
was time. But I think Jack Cork, I think Jay Rodriguez, I think Charlie Taylor will phase out now. The one I think he'll probably stick with is Josh Brownhill. I think Josh Brownhill's he was on the cusp of, it was just starting to do things really well last season before he came down, and he's been a really great player, and alongside Josh Cullen, who's just an absolute, I expect him to do good things next year as well. Then I do expect that those older players and those will go. It's really interesting what you were saying then, Ant, about that physicality that we need and that person to break down play. You were literally just describing Val Vegost. I'm just like, oh no, it's like everything we need is just, it's not signed on that he's coming. No, I know, but he can do that. Slightly forward.
I mean, because the thing is with Vegost is he's a big guy, but he actually presses really well. And I think that's why Ten Hag wanted him at United, is that he actually does that a lot of the running at the front. So if companies wanting to play with a high energy, high press, then he probably does fit it. He doesn't necessarily get the goals, but he would lay it on a plate for you, likes of Teller, who I would imagine will come permanently, especially if Southampton go down.
So. That's another thing, actually. Nathan Teller, what are your chances of getting him back for next season?
Very high, I would expect. I think if Southampton go down, absolutely.
He'll wriggle away from them.
I think I don't think he's ready as well. I think he's ready to. I don't think Nathan Teller needs another season in the Championship. He's done a couple of seasons. He's ready now to take a shot. Yeah. I guess from our perspective, it's whether or not he's done enough this season and hit enough headlines where bigger Premier League teams and us will come in for him. He's a southern lad, he's not northern. All of his family are down south. If one of the London clubs came in for him, a West Ham, for example, who can pay way more than we can, and he can be closer to home,
I'd rather live up
That's how they
north
do
than
it.
down south. I think
Well,
north,
me too. Me
great
too.
trumps the south,
Obviously.
obviously.
Duh. Like the north is the best. But yeah, as it stands at the moment, I think all signs. I wouldn't be surprised if we kept all 4 key loan players. If we got Matson, Bayer, Taylor Howard-Bellis, and Matson was the other one.
To be
I
fair,
think-
with Southampton going down, there's a James Ward-Prowse available too.
Ooh. Controversial, but I'm not ruling that out right now.
If you want, Natalie, I'll rule it out for you.
But the thing is with James Ward-Prowse, what I think makes a transfer like that, maybe not a newly promoted side, but you'd felt like he would have had his move to one of those big clubs by now if it was going to happen.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? And he's not. I can't see him staying in the Championship with Southampton. He's not going to do it, is he?
No.
So
they'll need to sell him.
Worth a try, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah. I'd reckon upwardly mobile. One of them teams, eyes bigger than the station. Maybe something like Villa, who will think they can add something more to their squad. Who are trying to finish somewhere between 10th and 7th.
Because his set pieces alone get you 9-10 points a season, don't they?
They do.
And we get a lot of set pieces because Vincent Kompany absolutely follows Pep's rule of just if they've got any sort of possession, foul them. And it's driven me mad about watching City for years, but now I'm like, la la la, la, la. I know I'm going to get some pelters here from Borough fans who hate Burnley anyway, but I'd quite like Borough to maybe just like fluff the playoffs so that we can get Akpom. But I think we might be in a very long queue for that, but he's an incredible striker.
Akpom scored 47% of his career goals this season. So whether or not he can do it again next season is...
That's true.
You know what I mean? Might just be a 1 season off kind of thing, which is unlikely if he's now on 30 goals. But
yeah, that's quite an extreme. That's not like a little improvement. It's like, oh, hello. Like thing is, but yeah, I would like him. I'd like him a lot. But we'll see. We'll see. Exciting times.
Holly, I mean, so you've obviously seen Sheffield United win automatic promotion, then finish 9th in the Premier League, and then obviously didn't quite follow that one up. So I'm just kind of wondering, how do you go about sort of building something more sustainable? How can we learn from Sheffield United's failures?
To put it bluntly.
Tell you what, right? You come on this show and you say, I don't want to talk about it, guys. You just get pelters. I think what's really important is that kind of sensible build as well, because I think that makes a real difference. And I think about being able to be competitive with your budget as well, because one of the things that really seemed to finish United off was that we ended up massively overpaying for players who weren't worth it, weren't ready, were in no way capable of contributing to a Premier League team because we couldn't afford the wages on the players who would compete. So, for example, Wilder, when we saw him earlier this year, made a really big point about how much he thought Ollie Watkins should have come to United. But Aston Villa paid him 3 times our maximum wage. So we were never going to get him. It's not a realistic one. So instead we spent £25 million on Ryan Brewster because that obviously was the only other option. So don't do that and you'll probably be all right, I think is the way that I would look at it. But I think the biggest risk for me with Burnley, I think they'll be fine next year. You know, we look at some of the games you've played. I think you're right to think about that pragmatism and whether or not there's a question or a risk about being open defensively. But I'm thinking the games you've played in the Cup, you know, you played against Bournemouth away and scored 4, played them pretty much off the... Like, you were the better team, deserved to win that game. Bournemouth look like they'll stay up. They're a team I think you would be better than this time next season. So there are teams there that I can already identify and say, without judging recruitment, I expect Burnley to be above them. So I wouldn't be concerned about that first season. It's then the risk of how do you build on what you've got and how do you find the improvements to your squad within your budget? And then the secondary risk of how much longer is Pep going to stay at Man City? And if Kompany keeps you up and does a good job, at what point do they come calling and he ain't going to be able to turn that down? They're the risks. But I think you're in a really strong position for that longer term build now. I think rather than being a team that were finishing 4th from bottom, and to not disrespect how much of an achievement that is, but you're now an upwardly mobile team who might finish 4th from bottom, but then will have an idea to finish 6th from bottom and then
Yeah.
8th from bottom, and we'll actually look to improve year on year rather than just trying to replicate the same level of performance. And that's what makes such a big difference. And that's where United went wrong, is that when we were in our position of strength, we didn't improve to try and make ourselves better. We just signed players to try and hold the line. And it's really difficult to do that.
Yeah, we did that for 8 years under Dash. We still had every single year. We just didn't buy any players, and we still had the same. And you know, the fact, bless him, I love him, but the fact that we still had last season Ashley Barnes leading our line, who was brought in 11 years ago as a League Two player to cover for Sam Vokes and Danny Ings in our 2012 promotion season when they both got injured. The fact that he was then leading our line in the Premier League 10 years later just goes to show how abysmal our recruitment policy is. But no, I think that's a really good point, Natalie.
I think we're in the same place. You know, I love the man and will forever love the man. But the fact that Billy Sharp has started 15 games for Sheffield United this season, I think is a real indictment of our recruitment. Because
it's interesting the parallel. Yeah.
No, sometimes you need it though. Sometimes you've just got to. Sometimes the stars have got a line for you, and we were the same this season. You know, we got an injury to Jay Rodriguez at a really key point, and Ashley Barnes should have been nowhere near that squad, but we needed him in the last 12 games, and he delivered. And so, and Ollie's the same. Yeah.
Natalie, he started though over like Lyle Foster. He signed for, was it 8 figures that Lyle Foster?
Yeah,
signed?
he's not ready though this season. He was brought in January with absolutely one eye on next year. He's not quite there yet, and he's had a couple of really poor performances with us. I think Vincent Company's trying to bring Obafemi and Foster together as a strike partnership, because they're on at the same time with Teller and Barnes and whoever that will be. I expect Foster will play more next season, but he was never ready this year. Barnes was a naturally better option, even at the later stages of his career.
Yeah, but then I suppose you do have to question whether, if Foster hasn't been that great in the Championship, is he ready to necessarily hit the ground running in the Premier
Possibly
League?
not. Possibly not.
Yeah.
So, who knows? Who knows? Company knows.
Company knows. Couple of final questions then, Natalie, because we really appreciate your time. How many points did Burnley end up on?
That's the question. I
think we get over 100. I think we get to 100, and I think that would be I think any Championship side that gets to 100 is just a really great achievement. If it's getting close, if we're down to like the last couple of games and the points records on, I think we'll do it. If we lose, say, this weekend, for example, which could happen, then I think we might drop down. But I think Burnley get over 100. Whether we get the points record, I don't know, but I think we hit the century.
Okay, and then in the Premier League, I feel like you'll be in the best place of the 3 promoted clubs. Do you think you're thinking around 15th, 14th, realistic?
15th or 16th.
15th, 16th.
Yeah, I don't think because I think more than anything, I just don't think we'll take any risks. I think we've got this opportunity, and we've got a really great squad and a manager. And I just don't think we'll be irresponsible. I think we'll just play the games that we can win. I think we'll be efficient in. I think we'll be effective. But I think we'll struggle in the big games. So I'm going to say 15th, 16th. 15th, 16th. I think realistically.
Okay. Well, we'll have to see.
Quite far clear, but quite a good 7-8 points clear.
Yeah, well, a lot can change based on the summer, so we'll have to see. But Natalie, we really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Just bit before we go, just talk to us about the podcast and where people can find your stuff.
Is that still to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yes. Sorry. I was like, where are we going? What podcast? What are you on about? Yes, so I am the host and editor of the No Name Never podcast, the Burnley podcast, which is also now, as with everything, a YouTube show as well, because everything's going video. We were the original Burnley content creators. We started back in 2009 when Burnley first got promoted to the Premier League. I feel like I've come on and just thrown pelters at poor Ollie.
Jesus Christ. I'm going home, mate.
We basically created a community podcast back in 2009 because Burnley is not a particularly affluent town, and there was a lot of concern that a lot of content would be taken from local journalists and behind paywalls because the Premier League had arrived. And we've been there ever since. So we are in our 14th year of producing content for free. We are not monetized. We will never charge our listeners for our content. It's a community podcast, and long may that continue. So you can follow us at No Nay Never, and come on board. And Dabs, you're coming on soon to talk about.
Yes, I'd love to. We'll have to sort that out. Thanks so much, Natalie. We really appreciate your time. Likewise to our regular guests, Ollie from Sheffield United Way and Ant Northgraves from the Hull and Back podcast. This has been EFL Debate, the Championship podcast. We'll see you again next time.